Vivienne Westwood had been at the epicenter of British fashion since she began selling her punk-inspired designs in Malcolm McLaren's influential King's Road store, Sex, in the 1970s. The Dame of the British Empire revolutionized what is deemed appropriate to wear in public. Indeed, it was she who first introduced bondage trousers and other aspects of BDSM, along with safety pins and chains to the fashion mainstream. Her use of 17th and 18th century cutting techniques, especially the radical cutting lines she developed for men's trousers, continue to be used and emulated today. Westwood's first runway presentation titled Pirates was staged in 1981. She continued to create collections titled Savage, Buffalo Girls, New Romantics, and The Pagan Years. An activist by conscience, Westwood often littered her designs with slogans and other political calls to action, though they were no less beautiful for it. Westwood's primary political concerns shifted over the years. She was predominantly an activist for climate change, nuclear disarmament and civil rights, especially that of freedom of speech. I make the great claim for my manifesto that it penetrates to the root of the human predicament and offers the underlying solution. We have a choice to become more cultivated, and therefore more human, or by not choosing, to be the destructive and self-destroying animal, the victim of our own cleverness. To be or not to be. She wrote in a manifesto entitled Active Resistance to Propaganda. Westwood studied at the Harrow School of Art and the University of Westminster, taking courses in fashion and silversmithing, but left after one term. I didn't know how a working-class girl like me could possibly make a living in the art world, she said. After taking up a job in a factory, then training to be an educator, she became a primary school teacher. During this period, she also created her own jewelry, which she would sell at a stall on London's Portobello Road. So, Vivienne Westwood is known for her deep involvement with punk culture, her fascination with European art and history, and her contribution to global socio-political and environmental issues. She has often incorporated these aspects into her collections, not only as a symbol of appreciation, but also as a political statement. The 1993 collection epitomized one of the most sensational yet influential collections of her fashion career, Anglomania. As Olafur Mutmain writes for Vogue, the 1993 fall-winter collection, Anglomania, which was presented at Paris Fashion Week on March 16, 1993, was Westwood's form of affection for European culture. She presented several ready-to-wear pieces that were heavily inspired by her attachment to European culture. The title of the collection really captures the whole concept that Westwood presented. Translated by Stevenson and Waite. Anglomania is an excessive admiration for English customs. The collection was heavily influenced by Scottish culture and the Elizabethan silhouette. The concept of Anglomania is still relevant in her current collection and in the fashion world today. In fact, it has had a huge impact on her brand, her reputation, and global fashion trends themselves. She has successfully fused traditional Scottish clothing such as the kilt, tartan and sporran with 17th century British historical clothing. Some facts you may not know about kilts. A modern-day kilt is typically made of about 7 meters of material. There are over 4,000 types of tartan to choose from when buying a kilt. The oldest tartan dates back to AD 260 and is called the Falkirk tartan. The first and only tartan to date that has been on the moon is the McBean tartan, worn by Alan Bean on Apollo 12 in November 1969. Investing in a kilt can be very expensive, and can set you back about £500 when including accessories such as a sporran, which is the Gaelic word for pouch or purse, flashes and the belt. One thing is for certain though, a kilt will last you a lifetime. You will always see a bagpiper wearing the traditional Highland kilt. If you are in Edinburgh, you can spot a bagpiper on Princes Street near Waverley train station, and also at Glencoe on our Loch Ness tours from Edinburgh, Glasgow and Inverness. Nobody knows who invented the first kilt, but according to Colin Calloway, author of White People, Indians, and Highlanders, an Englishman invented the little kilt, also known as the Faelid beg, the little kilt, which is the kilt which is still worn today. His name was Thomas Rawlinson, and he ran an iron furnace in Inverness, and he believed this kilt would add safety and comfort to the workers in his factory. To give an example of how significant her influence is, the Scottish tartan Loch Carron, which she used in the 1993 collection, has received its own recognition. As stated on the Vivienne Westwood website, Vivienne channeled her creative nature into producing her own tartan for the Anglomania Autumn-Winter 1993-94 collection and invented her own clan, the MacAndreas. The Loch Carron of Scotland officially recognised the clan, a process that normally takes 200 years, a huge achievement for Vivienne. Now the MacAndreas tartan can be recognised as one of her brand identities alongside the orb. It can be seen in most of her pieces and collections. For example, in several of her bags and wallets, such as the Derby bag, as well as in her current collections, which are heavily inspired by the iconic tartan, such as the Vivienne Westwood Spring 2023 ready-to-wear collection. As Leach discusses, the neon spiked tartan, for example, was a version of the MacAndreas pattern first used in her fall 1993 Anglomania collection. Besides, Chan stated that Olivia Singer, the fashion news director of British Vogue, said, "Vivienne Westwood is the OG of corsetry and, simply put, there is no one who does it better." One of her silhouettes is inspired by European fashion from the 17th to the 19th century. One of the examples of how influential she is when it comes to transforming historical fashion into modern couture is shown in the postponed 2021 Met Gala, which was held in 2022. Themed the Gilded Age, many celebrities, including SZA, wore Vivienne Westwood to the annual event. In addition, Westwood has always been actively involved in punk culture. Despite the fact that the majority of Anglomania's influences came from British culture, it didn't stop her from incorporating some punk-inspired styles into the collection. Some of her pieces are reinvented in her current collection. For example, safety pins, which were used as piercings in the 1993 collection. Not to mention her big involvement in bringing back punk-inspired platform heels. She fused Scottish folk dance shoes with extremely high platforms. It was the beginning of the comeback of the modern platform heel. As Pasori mentioned, in the early 90s, Vivienne Westwood brought the platform back into high fashion. One shoe in particular, the super elevated Gilly, paired a 5-inch platform with 9-inch heels, which Naomi Campbell was wearing when she fell on the runway in 1993. Since then, elevated platform shoes have become a fashionable silhouette. If it weren't for Vivienne Westwood and Naomi Campbell's iconic stumble in Runaways, it's hard to predict whether unconventional platforms would make a comeback as a fashion statement in the 21st century. There is no denying that Vivienne Westwood was one of the most influential designers the world has ever known. Westwood's dedication in her long career in fashion has brought many significant impacts towards the fashion industry, as shown in one of her most memorable collections, the Fall-Winter 1993 ready-to-wear, Anglomania, which not only influenced the British fashion industry, but also the current global fashion states as a whole.